Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes. For those keeping count, this is episode 393,
Oh,
and we're
wow.
going to talk about creating happiness. And so I brought Chief Happiness Architect Chuck Salvo, who, by the way, was also a former Disney leader. And you know how much I love Disney, so I want to welcome Chuck. Thank you for being here, and it's going to be fun.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate being here.
Off air we were talking about our Disney books, and I have Marketing the Magic and Embracing the Magic's coming out very soon. Or if you're listening to this later, it's probably already come out. So go out and buy them. But Chuck also has an awesome Disney book, or it's based on your experiences at Disney. And
Yes.
so let's talk about that first, and then we'll get into the whole happiness stuff.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, my book is Rave Respect. It's really how to respect and value everyone, and it's also a journey of life lessons from Disney and beyond. And really, the focus of it was as I worked in Disney. I was with Disney for 15 years, working in entertainment and also in the Disney Institute. And traveled the world helping organizations understand how to bring happiness. That was the biggest question, Rob, right? How do you make our customers happy? And I'd say, well, first you have to build the relationships between your employees and make them happy.
Hmm.
And the leaders would say, no, 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 we just want to make our customers happy. I said, no, it just doesn't work that way. And so I noticed that there's this really major gap with COVID and with social unrest and the things that are happening in the world, and the telephone, of course, the handheld computer. And the fact of the matter is, people don't know how to talk again anymore.
Hmm.
They know how to text. They know how to do, but even texting could be, kind of
Well,
scary.
and I just read an article where Disney is now thinking about undoing some of the apps that are on the phone. So when guests come through the parks, they're feeling the full immersive experiences and not staring at their phones constantly.
I think that would be a great idea. Yeah, you see it now with the Disney app that they literally are walking through the park like this, and you're right. It hurts in that immersion and that intentionality to what Disney does. However, it first starts foundationally, and that's what the book is about, with relationships. And I always like to say, let's save the world one relationship at a time. So the book really first helps people understand how to understand what their personality type is. It then teaches them how to identify other person's personality types. And then it talks about how do you engage individuals based on that in a conversation and getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And then you understand whether, hey, sometimes we click and sometimes we don't, and that's okay too. But I don't know where it happened in the world that we can't disagree and still get along. Right? Because disagreement brings wonderful opportunity and great solutions.
Well, social media gave everybody a voice, whether that was good or bad. But I think when you hide behind a keyboard, um, you don't feel like you need to be nice. And there are so many people that are vocal on. Yeah, I think it goes beyond vocal, more like psychotic. And they throw their temperament in there, and I'm like, why don't you just slow your roll? Because if you were in front of the person, you wouldn't act like that.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have a chapter on that, and about keyboard courage and about getting out of that herd groupthink,
Hmm.
right? Teaching people how to think for themselves, how to listen clearly to one another. Because you're right, that keyboard courage is such a curse nowadays, and you really need to learn critical thinking skills for yourself. But I did want to make it sounds like it's very intellectual, the book, and very highbrow. No, I kept it really simple because I really wanted it to be short, easy to understand, but also very practical and applicable
Hmm.
to and easy to follow. So the book is an easy read, not a heavy intellectual read either.
Yeah, it's I've tried to make all my books easy to read, non-intimidating, because if they go beyond a certain page count, and I try to keep them under 200 pages. If they go beyond that, then people don't want to sit down and read it in its entirety. They'll say, "Oh, it's too much to read." They'll put it down, and then they forget about it. So, if you keep your books easy to read, non-intimidating, more people will sit down and read the whole thing. And
Here, here.
it's 2 hours of their life, and then they can start implementing.
Yeah, well, this one's 80, but there's still great stories about Disney, great stories about other companies
Mhm.
that have had this journey.
Yeah.
And so I think they'll have fun. And I tried to have some humor in it also.
You and Barry Jacobson, who's been on the podcast many times, and also co-wrote or he wrote the forward to
Yeah,
Marketing Magic.
I know
The
very well.
stories that you guys tell is just it's captivating because here you're within the scope of Disney, but you also put your personality, your spin in it, and I think some of those stories um, become legacy because it's something that you pass down to other people, and the stories that they listen to are going to be the catalyst to get people to either like Disney or don't like Disney. And I know that there's so many people out there. They'll say as soon as I mention it, "Oh, I wrote another Disney book." They're like, "Really? I don't like Disney. Why?" And then they'll go through all these things about woke and this, and maybe that's true, but my book has nothing to do with that. My book has to do with the marketing aspects that you're going to learn going through Disney. So it's geared to every entrepreneur. And
Yep.
same with the stories that you tell. Same with Barry's stories. There is no, wokeness. It's just a story, and people get so bent out of shape.
Well, you said something so important because I think that is really and hopefully, and I'm very hopeful with the new leader of Disney, Josh, that he understands the culture. Or, at least he did. I think he
Well,
still does, based on
you
what
know,
I'm
I-
seeing.
what 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 I like about Josh is that he takes the time to walk the parks, just like Walt did. And he
Yes.
and he and he meets people, and he listens. And maybe that'll change because now he's CEO. Maybe he doesn't have as much time to do that. But I think he's different than Bob Iger, but he has more strengths. He's to me he's more encouraging in the long term.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's Disney had a very simple model, and now I help organizations find their own model in that regard. But their simple model is a really clear set of boundaries.
Mhm.
And I think where Disney went off the rail a little bit, and where some of this concern came in, is that they got away from that simplicity. Disney, its brilliance was it being agnostic. They loved everybody.
Yeah.
There was no everybody, and I mean, it doesn't matter age, sex, size, gender. It didn't matter whatsoever. They loved everybody,
Mhm.
and they made sure that they let people know that they loved everybody equally, individually. And when people started taking positions, this is where Disney really, and by the way, a lot of other corporations got into that model too. And you have to realize that it's okay to be agnostic as long as you respect everyone
Yeah.
too. And so you can't, by not picking sides, you actually are putting a voice out there that's very simple that, hey, everybody's welcome.
Yeah.
And that's what the brilliance with Disney was. Everybody is welcome.
Yeah.
And that's where the struggle came in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am hopeful also that they go back to the basics
Mhm.
and focus on those basics because that's where that magic, those magic moments came from. I mean, you mentioned like the stories.
Yeah.
The stories come from the fact that because everybody understands the clear set of boundaries, or did understand the clear set of boundaries that Disney used, is the fact that then it is inside that set of boundaries. everybody was empowered to create happiness,
Mhm.
right? And once they started blurring those boundaries, that's where trouble came in. They get back to the consistent set of boundaries, and if other organizations or entrepreneurs listening to this understand how to set that clear set of boundaries, that's where empowerment comes in, and that's where the magic moments come in. They're not scripted; they're
Right.
very genuine.
Yeah. And I've noticed that when I go to Disney World, the moments that become magical are never scripted.
Never.
When you can take someone out of an element, and I explained this off air was when I took this group of entrepreneurs to Disney and we were at the Grand Floridian and I invited the photographer into our group to take pictures. He was blown away. He had never done that before. He had never been asked to be part of someone's group because he was always the photographer taking pictures of the group. And that was kind of a reversed magic moment. Yeah, it was great for us, but it became a happiness moment for him,
Oh, 100%.
and so
Yeah.
when you can take those moments and whether you're inviting someone into your group, whether you're experiencing Disney for the first time, you know, embrace those that happiness because it's going to make those memories more magical.
Oh, yeah. People don't remember the ride; they remember how they're treated, and
And
it really is genuine.
what I noticed is that when I took the group on a VIP tour, we did the Wild Africa Trek in Animal Kingdom. So you
Yeah.
go behind the scenes and you do the kind of the I don't know, they latch you on and you're going over the bridge and you're
Yeah, yeah.
well, there was 3 guides and every guide knew our names. And we yes, we had our name tags on for a brief moment of time, but we took them off and they still knew who we were. They remembered us. They talked to us and they had conversations with us. And I'm thinking, wow, this became not only real, but I felt like I connected with them. We became friends, even if just for a
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, it's
You know,
genuine care,
yeah,
but it's not just one way. Right? You
yeah,
said it so well that you ended up inviting that person in. They were like, "Whoa!"
yeah,
And that was a little bit when you told me that story. I was kind of like a little bit sad because that's how it always used to be. It was you actually built relationships back and forth, but when it becomes scripted, it becomes, "Oh, that's my job." But when it becomes cultural
mhm,
and genuine, now it's a purpose, it's a
yeah.
north star, and
And
so creating happiness is creating happiness.
the whole name tag thing on Disney employees or Disney cast members. You know, eh, some of them just have their name. Most of them have their name and where they're from, which is
Right.
great because I'm from Pennsylvania. I like to go there and look for other you know, people from Pennsylvania. And so I
Yep.
strike up a conversation, or, sometimes you'll see, hey, could be military, could be navies. You don't see too many of them. They usually just have their hometown. But, when you can strike up conversations with these people, and a lot of cast members love that because they feel like they're part of your family, even if it's just for 2 minutes.
Well, they're empowered to do it.
Hmm.
The fact that I tell this story in the book about letting some of family into. So it's one of my perks. I'm retired. I still have that perk, thank goodness, and I can go into the parks for free. And but I was still working at Disney back then, and I was taking my family into the parks, and they're of course parking, so I'm waiting in the heat. And this young greeter is comes in contact with this group, it's two older people and an older child with some mental challenges and with some medical mental challenges. And the person is bawling their eyes out. And the greeter's standing there, and I'm listening to this, and the greeter's saying, no, you lost your magic band. You need to go buy another one. And I was like shocked. I mean, I was literally shocked. I was a young kid, and he goes, well, go over there to the ticket booth, and they'll take care of it. They'll get you a new, you can buy a new ticket there. And they're just crestfallen. And the young man is just crying his eyes out, And I walked over to them, and now I'm in civilian clothes at that point, and said, "Hey, listen, I'm a fellow cast member." I said, "Do you know you could solve that?" And he goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I know you probably knew." I said, "But you could solve that. You can go over to them right now, and you could tell them you don't need to buy another magic band. We'll get you another magic band. Clearly, you have them, and we'll get you in immediately." Well, he goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I promise you." And so, fingers crossed that his manager wouldn't yell at him, you know. So then he literally runs up to them, catches up to them before they get in line to the tickets, and I hear him talking, and all of a sudden, Rob, and I get emotional on this one because it's so emotional, but all of a sudden, they wrap their arms around him, and they had a big group hug, and everybody starts jumping up and down. And sure enough, he gets them to the window and walks them actually in front of the line and says, "Hey, this person lost their magic band. Can you get them a new one?" And what did the ticket person say? What do you think?
Sure.
Sure, no problem. Now, again, I'm hoping that's what will happen, and I'm confident that's what will happen. And I'm also confident that when the leader finds out the story of what this greeter did, he will not only celebrate it, he'll recognize that person for doing something great,
Hmm.
as opposed to costing us money, right?
Hmm.
And but who do you think that moment was the most enjoyable for?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and I have a story like that. We were at breakfast at Art Animation the one year. I took my grandson, and we're looking for little small tiny packs of jelly to put on our English muffin. They don't have them. So they bring over a jar like this, right? And I said, "Okay, what do I owe you?" "Oh, nothing." I'm like, "The jar has a price on it." They just gave it to us, and it was like, okay, yeah, I could have paid for it, but I wasn't gonna use the whole jar, but they're empowered to do small things. Sometimes they're
Yes.
empowered to do bigger things, but it's I think it's that culture that they've been taught.
Well,
Um,
yeah, it
but
started. It's
COVID did
yeah,
throw a monkey wrench into things, and and I've been to Disney during COVID and after COVID and before COVID, and I can tell you, not everybody was friendly during COVID because they didn't want to be there. They were scared, just like everyone else.
right.
But they opened the parks and they believed everything was going to be safe, and it was. We didn't have a problem. But I think they did more to convince guests how safe it was, but less to convince their own staff, their cast members how safe it was. So there was a little bit of fear there. I think it's gotten
No
better.
doubt. No
Um,
doubt. Yeah, I was there during that time, and it was, like we had to be intentional to say, okay, we had to change our smile when you greet each and every guest to project a smile through your mask
yeah,
to each and every guest. So those are shifts that you have to do sometimes, and that was a very unique time.
yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
The one of the guests that attended with me at in January, she had a cochlear implant, and she wasn't allowed to go through the security. And
Oh,
so she
got it.
always had to
Yeah.
get wanded and patted down, and the one day I think we went through the security systems 7 or 8 times because I was going through resorts, I was going through this, I was and I thought, for me, I was kind of getting irritated because this process had to be repeated constantly. She was taking it like a trooper, because she knew that the safety to Disney was paramount, and they're doing their job. But I guess that they don't see a lot of the cochlear implants, so the
Or
earpiece,
that individual didn't.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, and
so
and
it was.
so yeah, and that's we always say it's purpose needs to overshadow task.
Mhm.
Now, task is still very important in your role, but you also have to understand your purpose of we create happiness.
Mhm.
So, and then yes, safety's in there, but you also have to kind of use your common sense. Just like I talked to that greeter, that hey, this person clearly isn't trying to scam you, right?
Mhm.
So they really are. And that's the other thing when I do this with organizations, and Rob, I've done it with airlines, engineering for. I mean, it works for every type of organization you could potentially think of.
Mhm.
But when I tell them that, the hardest part is to get their employees to understand that it is okay to be on purpose over task.
Mhm.
And that's where the leadership struggles with that. Oh my gosh, you're going to give away the house. And in reality, it's the opposite.
Mhm.
It's harder, even with Disney. It's harder to get the people to understand because they want to protect the business, the company they work for, and get their paychecks from.
Mhm.
So it's harder to get them to understand that it's okay to give that service, even if there's a little investment in it.
Mhm.
But it's also has to be. We used a term back then. I'm sure they still do, called kind versus kind. So if you drop an ice cream cone, you don't give a cruise, right? You give another ice cream cone,
Right.
right? Lost a ticket, you give a ticket. But it's that simple. Teach them that hey, I understand, but it's kind versus kind, and
Mhm.
we rely on you to evaluate the situation, but fault on creating happiness.
Right. So, you left Disney, and what motivated you to start your own business?
Well, I was part of Disney Institute for 15 years, and I was also head of professional development and advisory side of business. And during a professional development, we would always have like small medical groups, dental groups, small entrepreneur businesses, startups. And they would always come to us after class and say, hey, can you teach me how to do that back at my organization? And we did have an advisory service, but it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars like, to start, right? So they couldn't do that. So I was thinking, man, my business model needs to be for that small startup, for that entrepreneur, to be able to afford something like this. And so my business is scalable to different sizes of businesses. And then I took the leap. I had retirement, so I could take a good retirement package and still keep my benefits that I had, my perks from Disney. So, man, it wasn't that much risk there. And man, ironically, my first businesses were a government organization that was 101 locations worldwide,
Wow.
and probably the top fast food company in the world. So by initially my helping of small organizations were not my startup, and thank goodness from startups perspective from my business. But then as my business grew over the last 6 years, it I've been able to help every level of business. So it's been I've been very blessed, Rob, to help a lot of organizations find their happiness.
And let's touch on fast food. We don't have to name names, but I just saw an article a while back where Wendy's is closing like 300 locations, and Subways are closing their locations, and you look at these restaurants and whether they grew too fast, to whatever the reason was, that they're starting to close is I don't know if it's overconfidence in their ability to sell, or it's they can't get enough people to want to work, or they're not paying them well. I think it's a combination of a lot of things,
Yeah, yeah,
but when you see headlines where they're closing, hundreds of locations, you got to think, okay, what happened? And I know
yes,
what happened with Wendy's is just the management was just, I can't say they were horrible, but they weren't taking in the considerations not only of the employees, but also of the guest experience, because, you know, I've gone into some of them and they're the dirtiest restaurants. And
right, yeah,
I just think that the care that you put into your building, especially when I come into, and I'm looking for cleanliness. Okay. And
sure,
and and if it's clean, I'm gonna buy from you. If it's not clean and it looks like it, hasn't been taken care of for a while. I'm leaving. And and I'm not saying that that's the difference between Disney and Universal, but I know Universal is getting a lot of great attention right now, but their older parks aren't the cleanest.
Right.
And I've been there. I've done it. I've done the rides, and some of them are great, but they focus on Harry Potter, and they focus on a few others, and the other ones get neglected, and they're dirty.
Right, right, and their motto was much more on the assets as opposed to the experience. Even though they have great experiences, I don't want to. They've done a much better job in that world too, but they still need to go back to the experience of the guest. Going back to the fast food question, the first of all, franchise models are difficult,
Mhm,
and if the corporate entities are treating the owner operators in a very punitive way, that's one issue.
mhm,
What we were able to do with this model was give the owner operators a very easy set of guidelines or a set of boundaries, like we've talked about earlier, to follow.
mhm,
And so when we went, and so the first thing I do when I go into organizations is to do a cultural assessment. I literally go and talk to every level of employee and leader, and let listen to their voice and let them share, and it's all confidential, and boy, they share. They share everything. And then once we have that information, we're able to go back and we use a cross-functional approach where the same people we talk to every level is now responsible for building the set of boundaries that they're going to use and follow. That allows it to be not some person coming in and telling them what Disney does or what they should do. It's letting them be an owner in building it.
mhm,
Now, this one came up. So when we did the cultural assessment, this one came up, and when I asked the corporate, and when I asked the owners, what's the most important thing? Oh, safety and quality are the most important things. Oh, really? Does everybody think that? Yeah. When I talked to the cast members, the employees, they said, nope, it's fast. They want us to do everything fast.
mhm,
So over safety and quality, yep, they don't care about that.
yeah,
So when we built the framework, with safety obviously in that business, it had to come first. Quality came second, in order, by the way: safety, quality, friendly, then fast. What owners and entrepreneurs and everybody freaks out on is that they they get upset that there's an order. Yet
mhm,
there has to be an operational order for it to be logical, for it to happen. Otherwise, you get what we heard from the employees, that, oh,
mhm,
fast is the most important. However, here's the crazy secret. When they realize that safety, quality, and friendly are paramount above that, they then understand that fast comes anyway. In
mhm,
fact, fast probably comes better than it ever did before, because like, let's use a burger, for instance. Well, in a burger joint, right? If you first aren't safe and it's undercooked, and that means the quality's poor, and you hand it to the person and they come back and have to hand it back to you because it's not done properly, so you're definitely not friendly, and your fastest then goes out the window. Well, the corporate people would say, "Oh, we don't count the redo orders." Well, what?
mhm,
Right? But when you do safety, quality, and friendly in order first, and everything is efficient, then it becomes fast
mhm,
naturally.
yeah,
And I love it, because then the corporation ended up going another route after a couple of years of this, but the owner operators kept hiring us to put it in place. And corporate to this day comes back to me and says, "Why is the stores that you work with much more efficient?" I said, "Because they're following the plan that you tried to put together, yet you just want to be punitive to the
yeah,
owners.
yeah,
You want to give them
and
a list of what to do, and they don't have a purpose or a
if
North
you ever
Star."
walk into some of these fast food restaurants, they have displays up, and some of them will actually show the time from when you ordered, and it counts.
Oh, all of them.
And when you're constantly looking at time, your orders are going to be messed up. Your orders are going to be wrong. But if you take the time to understand the customer, you're going to get you're going to reduce your errors. You know, and here's the thing is that okay, so here's your average time. That's great. Now management wants you to be faster. And then you get a new faster time. Guess what? They want it faster. There's a point at which you can no longer go faster without screwing things up,
Yeah.
and so slow down.
Biggest issue in all businesses, Rob, is that they don't attach the right metrics to the right people.
Right.
To your point, what are they trying to achieve? A quality product in a reasonably fast amount of time.
Hmm.
But the second you put a clock on those people, that all goes out the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still okay to measure it. It's still okay to see how to prove it. But once you take the quality out of it, and once you take the safety out of it, then your whole
Oh, I was
situation
I
blows
was
up.
at I took my granddaughter to local fast food joint, and you could tell they were watching the clock. And you could hear the manager going, "Hurry, hurry, hurry!" And somebody had a tray full of food, and they were bringing it to the guest. Yeah, and it didn't make it. All over the floor, all over the counter. I mean, so now you got wasted product. You got cleanup time. You got angry customer. Now they have to wait again. So yeah, slow
Duh.
down, slow down. But we have a few minutes left, and I want you to share with the audience how they can find you. Where do they go?
Great. I mean, obviously, in this day and age, if you just look up Chuck Salvo on LinkedIn or on the internet, you could find me. I look up Chief Happiness Architect Chuck Salvo. There's some other Chuck Salvos out there. I think there's a preacher, a comedian.
I saw there's a preacher. I'm like, this isn't the right
Yeah,
one.
that's not me, but nothing. I'm very good with that. But I'm the guy, and I'm the rave guy. I'm the respect and value everyone guy. But the Chief Happiness Architect is the way to find me. Also, the book is on Amazon, so you could look up Rave, How to Respect and Value Everybody, and find the book. I'd appreciate you taking a look at it and giving me your comments. Or if you just want to brainstorm, LinkedIn's a great way. I do a lot of insights and postings there, and helping people along on this journey for happiness. So my you can find me there also.
And we connected on LinkedIn, and I for everybody out there, mostly entrepreneurs that are listening to this, if you're not on LinkedIn, please get yourself an account. If you have an account, make sure you're active. I find that I get more entrepreneurial skills, learning, advice, tips from people on LinkedIn than I ever did on Facebook. And I
Absolutely.
know a lot of people are like, oh, well, all my friends are on Facebook. Okay, but are your friends clients? Are your friends other entrepreneurs? You know, Go to LinkedIn. You're going to find, and and I understand there's a lot of people out there. Rob, I'm already on 16 different socials, and look, I have thousands of connections on LinkedIn.
Yes,
I have a weekly newsletter called the Robism Weekly. Um, and it's just my thoughts on and common sense on business. And I find that I get a lot of people subscribing.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
why I sent you a note the other day. I loved what you wrote. I loved your insight. I
Mhm.
felt we were aligned, and I said, "Hey, Rob, we're aligned."
Yeah, and if you don't ever buy my books, that's okay. But go out and buy Chuck's book. Learn how to be, you know, a raving, I can't say lunatic because that doesn't fit. Might be me, but I want you to respect and value everyone. And it's hard today in this in today's day and age, and but you can still respect people even if you disagree with them.
One, absolutely. In fact, it's you learn even more when you disagree sometimes.
Yeah. And disagreeing is one thing, but having A pissing match on social is not the way to do things. So step back, evaluate, and say, is this worth my time to argue with this person? Person that I respect, and just say, look, I respect you. I'm not going to get into an argument. Let's table this and come back with a fresher
Yeah,
mind some other time.
absolutely.
We don't have to argue about politics. We don't have to argue about religion or how a business, is run, but we can respect each other and say, look, hey, that's a great idea. Never thought about that. Let me try it out.
Well, a little quick tip before we go, Rob, is just like what you said. Don't start with the crazy things that you would never, what you were told as a kid never to talk about. Start with, that we're both from Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
Start with what hobbies you liked when you grew up as a kid. What foods do you like?
Hmm.
What culture did you come from? Those are the things that really spark the initial conversations and allow you to get to know one another first.
Hmm.
Maybe later on you can get into a little bit deeper stuff, but start with the light stuff first.
There you go. So, everybody, please visit Chuck, LinkedIn, go to his website, buy his book. Oh, your website is what? Salvo
Salvo
Innovation
innovative solutions.com.
Solutions.com. There you go. And we'll see everybody on the next episode. Adios.